Welcome to rpgamepire. I'm David. Thank you for joining me in this how to play video of Horrified, which is based on the Universal Studio monsters. If you haven't had a chance yet, please check out our review and playthrough. So the object of Horrified is to defeat 2, 3, or 4 monsters depending on what difficulty you want to play. I'm going to show the setup of the recommended first time you play, which is to play with 2 monsters, Dracula and Creature from the Black Lagoon. So you win when you defeat the 2 monsters, but you'll lose if the terror track reaches the skull here. In other words, either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 villagers or heroes are defeated that many times. So I'll go over that in a moment. So here's the village, and depending on what monsters you play and what characters you play, you're going to be placing them on different areas here. So let's do that first. Dracula, I'll show you the card here. This number here tells you his frenzy number, which I'll explain in a moment. And it says here Dracula is seeking blood. Destroy his 4 coffins so you can subdue him. So each monster usually has something you got to do first before you can ultimately defeat them. So we're going to be placing coffins in the cave, the dungeon, the crypt, and the graveyard. And you have to get items of 6+ value when you move into that location to destroy that coffin. And then here you have to get 6+ value of items that are yellow to defeat Dracula after the 4 coffins are destroyed. And so here are the items here, which I'll explain in a moment. So let's place that real quick. So Dracula starts, one thing that's not on that card, which you got to turn over another monster card here, and there's the other monsters are right here, the other 4. You got to look at the back of any monster card to see any setup instructions. So place Dracula on the board at the crypt, and then place the coffins in the 4 locations, which you can see on this card right here. So that's one thing to remember, is that you got to have another monster card to place them. So here's the cave, here's a crypt, so he starts with a coffin in his area, the dungeon, and the graveyard over here. So now Dracula is set up, but now we got to set up Creature from the Black Lagoon. So here, place the camp overlay on the board so it aligns with the camp location. Place the creature on the board at the lagoon. And then place the boat on the X labeled start on the monster mat. So if you can't see that. So let's take a look a little bit at Creature from the Black Lagoon. Now in the playthrough, I referred to him mistakenly as the Loch Ness Monster. But he has a frenzied value of 4. So he will not... What did I do with my frenzied marker? Well, I'll find it in a minute. Here it is. So he will not be getting this marker. Dracula gets it because he has a lower value. So the creature strikes, again, here's a little bit of flavor text here. From the depths, locate his watery retreat so you can oust him. And I'll explain what this exclamation does in a moment because Dracula has one as well. So the boat's going to go right here. And every time we go to the camp, we have to spend a yellow, red, or blue item to move the boat. So if my character goes to the camp and I spin a blue item, he'll move here, skipping the red and yellow. If the next player spins a red, the boat will go there. And then if the next player spins a red, it will skip to the next one. So you want to be strategic on how you move the boat and spin objects of the right color to move the boat furthest along. Otherwise, if you go blue, yellow, it's going to take too long. So going red to red, look how many X's you skip. And then to defeat the Loch Ness Monster, you just have to move into a space and either spend a yellow, red, or blue token. Actually, you got to go into the creature's space. Whereas Dracula, you got to go into his space to do the same, no matter where Dracula is. So the boat starts here. The Loch Ness Monster starts in the lagoon over here. And then the camp overlay, you put it over the top, because that's where you got to go to move the boat. So the monsters are set up. This should give you a quick clue of what the other monsters are. You'll see that you have Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein here. Again, you'll see that have really nice pieces here. And some items that go with them. And then the mummy has scarabs, a mummy's curse token, and a museum overlay, because you got to move the scarabs. You have the Wolfman with different objects here and a laboratory overlay. Then you have the precinct with the invisible man, who ironically is not invisible. Could have made it a clear piece. That would have been interesting. But anyways, here's the Wolfman, and you'll see that you got to do different things to defeat him. You're worried about blue objects and red objects. Here's the invisible man. And you got to worry, you can use any object here for these things, and use any red, you got to use red objects to defeat him. The mummy, you got to use yellow objects to move the scarabs and red objects to defeat him. And then we have Frankenstein and the bride. And you need to use blue and yellow. And then if both dials show the monster's faces, they are defeated. Otherwise, increase terror level. Place Frankenstein at the graveyard and place bride at the dungeon. So you got to move some dials here to defeat them. But we're only setting up for 2 monsters. You could do 3 monsters and make it medium difficulty. 4 monsters is the hard difficulty, which we haven't tried yet ourselves. So the board is set up for the monsters. Now we need to look at the characters. So you have 1, 2, 3, 6 choices. You can play this solo or up to 5 players. And what to keep in mind is their active actions they get. Each character will get so many actions on their turn. So she's the lowest, and most of them are 4s, but the mayor is a 5. And so you look at their special abilities. So the explorer, well, here's her starting location too, but the explorer, you can place your hero in any non-water space, so she can kind of like teleport around. And you can use your actions as many times as you want on your turn, up to the number of actions that you have. So she can go to 3 different spaces on a turn. But she probably won't, because she'll have to do something in that space. So she may be able to do it twice or once. The inspector can go to a place their hero in a non-water space with a monster. So that's really nice. If you have to defeat a monster, she just goes there. The archaeologist can pick up items from an adjacent space. So that saves you time and not having to move into 2 different spaces and picking up objects. Move any hero or villager 1 space. That's a professor. So this is nice because you want to move villagers away from the monsters, because every time a villager is defeated by a monster, the terror level goes up. So this will allow you to move villagers closer to their destinations, which I'll explain what happens when they get there. You have the scientists. You may add 1 to your strength of any item you use, so that can be very helpful, because let's say you need 6 to defeat the Dracula, but you only need a 5 then to do that if you have her. Then you have the courier. Place any hero in any space with another hero, so he allows heroes to so he uses his action to move heroes onto other heroes, or to bring heroes to him. I'm sorry, so you place your hero in any space with another hero, so he can move to any space with another hero. I misread that. I haven't played that one yet, that's why. And the mayor, she has 5 actions, but no special ability. So whatever you pick, you're going to take, the rules call them movers, but you know, you're going to get your character, and then you'll get 1 perk card. So you'll shuffle these up, and each character will get 1 to start. And be mindful, though, you might get a card that says, place the Wolfman in any space. And you're like, well, I can't use that card. Well, that's okay, because you have an or move any monster 3 spaces. So no matter what card you get, you're going to be able to use it, even if it's a card that's more geared towards a different monster. You can use the second part of the card. So each character will get 1. You'll place all the objects in the bag here, and you'll notice the anatomy of a item. This says here it's a value 6. It placed in the barn, and it's a rifle. This one here is a knife, and it's at the dock. So red objects tend to be that. Here is steak, a steak. You find it at the Abbey. It's a value 3, or garlic, for instance. Then you have blue objects tend to be scientific. Here is I'm not even too sure what that is. I might do some kind of device. But here's a microscope, and you can find it in the Tower's Word 2. So after you pick your characters and get your perk card, you'll place all the objects in the draw bag, shake them up thoroughly. Because I divided them up by colors, I got to make sure I do that, shake them up thoroughly here. And then you're going to place 12 starting objects in the village. And these will be objects that you will use to complete tasks. Like, for instance, I need red objects to destroy the coffins for Dracula, and I could use either yellow, red, or blue to move the boat to find the creature from the Black Lagoon. So here I go. 3, 6, 10, 11, 12. So not many yellow on that draw. And then you just place the bag off to the side, because you'll draw new ones often on every turn. So I look at where I place them. So usually Julie does this, so she's much faster than me. So in museum, the camp, another one at the camp, the mansion, the tower, the laboratory. Oops, I moved the coffin here. You got to be careful of that. Another one at the tower, the institute, another one at the tower. And usually, they're random. They'll go in different spaces. The barn over here, and the theater. Okay, so 2 at the theater. So here's our starting objects spread around. They have different values. And you can combine them. So for instance, if I have a 3 and a 5, I can use that to defeat a coffin which needs 6. So you can exceed. All right, so let's take a look at the 2 characters we're going to play with. The ones that Julie and I like to play with. I like to play the Explorer. She likes to play the Inspector. So we look here. The Inspector starts at the precinct, and the Explorer starts at the camp, which is a good place to go to start trying to defeat the creature from the Black Lagoon. So right here goes the Explorer, and here goes the, where's the precinct? Oh, right next door, the Inspector. So I have 3 actions, and Julie would have 4. I'd say I drew this perk card. Julie drew this perk card, and we can share what we have. So again, Julie got a card she can't use for Frankenstein or the Bride, but she can use it to move a monster 3 spaces. And again, why would you want to move a monster? Because you're going to move them away from you or from villagers, because monsters will attack you if they're in your same space. So we'll put the other cards off to the side here, right over here. And then you'll see that each player can get a hero phase card, and then you can flip it over to the monster phase. I'll just put it like this to show both sides. And I'll be going over the phases here in a moment. All right, so we don't do anything with the other cards. Again, you can play up to 5 players. And we don't do anything with these. Now, one last thing we haven't explained is dice, which we'll explain when a monster attacks. And then let me look in the rule for the correct terminology: monster cards. So you'll see here are monster cards. And I've separated certain ones. You'll see that there's cards for, that are the top number here will show you how many objects you'll draw. So when you draw a monster card, we'll add 2 more objects to the map board. And this says here that the Invisible Man will do something, but we don't have the Invisible Man in this game, so we ignore this part. But down here, the Mummy will move, the Loch Ness Monster, the Frankenstein, and then whoever... So we have the Loch Ness Monster we're playing with. The Loch Ness Monster will move 1 space and attack with 3 dice if there's a villager or a hero in that space. So we ignore the Mummy and the Frankenstein and the Invisible Man part of the card. So here again, here's another one. We're not playing with the Mummy. where we're not playing with the werewolf, but we are playing with Dracula, and we ignore the invisible man. So Dracula will move 1 and attack with 2 dice. I'll explain movement in a minute. All right, so here's one where Dracula does get to move, and the Loch Ness Monster on the same turn. And you read the special power here. Move the hero or villager closest to Dracula 3 spaces towards him. And if there's a tie, it will be the hero. So anytime there's a tie for where the monster is going to move to attack or to bring somebody close to a monster, it's the hero that will break ties if there's a villager tied for it. Now, if it's 2 heroes or 2 villagers that are tied, then the players get to choose which one. Again, here's another one for Dracula. No objects will be drawn. Now, you see the frenzied marker here. So that's where it matters who's the frenzied monster. Right now, that's Dracula. So if Dracula is frenzied, he'll move, even though his symbol is not down here. And if you want to know what these symbols mean, you just look at the card, your monster phase card, and it tells you, for instance, that the bride is this symbol and Frankenstein's this symbol. So it is possible for a monster to move twice in the same turn. So let me find one like that. Okay, so here's an example right here. Dracula will move and then move again because he's frenzied. So he'll move 1 space and attack with 2 dice if there's someone there. If there's nobody there, he'll move another space and maybe be able to attack. But it's possible he could be in that space, attack and fail, then attack again, or attack and succeed, move another space and attack somebody nearby. So the frenzied can change depending on the cards that are drawn. Right now it's Dracula. If Dracula is defeated, the creature from the Black Lagoon will be frenzied because he's next in order with a 4. Or there might be a card that switches it to the creature from the Black Lagoon. Then it might be possible for the creature to go twice. But right now it's Dracula. So here are all the monster cards. Now I haven't told you about the villagers yet. Well, that's because I wanted to show you here on this special shot. Here are all the villagers, and these are also monster cards. So I'm going to be shuffling these in the deck. The reason why I wanted to point this out is because it can be difficult when you're reading it. You got to look for their name in the text. So Elizabeth matches Elizabeth. The picture, sometimes you can be hard to figure out which one is which. So for instance, Lucy, it says Lucy right here, her picture doesn't really match her outfit here. And so you're going to draw, when it's drawn, you're going to place Lucy in the theater. And then it shows right here at the very top that you want to, Lucy's in danger until she gets to the mansion. So characters can move with Lucy adjacent spaces. So if my explorer is in the same space with Lucy, I can move Lucy 1 space. So say that card is drawn, and she starts in the theater, and I'm here. What did I do with my marker? I'm here with Lucy, so here I am. And I can use a move action. I got to get her to the mansion, so I can go 1 action to move, 2nd action to move, 3rd action to move. And the next turn, if I get her to the mansion, she'll be rescued, she'll be out of danger, and then I draw a perk card. So anytime you return a villager to his or her start location, you get a perk card. Unfortunately, during the time that the villager is out here, if the Loch Ness Monster moves into that space and there's no hero there, the Loch Ness Monster will attack the villager. And if the villager is defeated, you move up the terror track. But I'll get to that in a moment. So let's go back to these cards here. So they're just like other monster cards. Usually there's frenzied symbols on every one of these. And so for this card is drawn here, yes, you'll place Reinfeld at the docks. Dracula will go, and the frenzied monster would go. In this case, it would be Dracula again. He would go twice, and it's pretty bad. He'll move 2 spaces each time and attack twice. This one here, move frenzied marker to the next monster, so it would go to the creature of the Black Lagoon, and move each villager 1 space toward their safe location. So you take all these cards. No villagers start on the board yet. Again, I just wanted to show you all the villagers that you have. Take them all. We'll keep these here for now. And you shuffle it into the monster deck. So the only thing we haven't gone over now, is the game is set up, is the phases. And that's where you're going to interact with locations as the hero, picking things up. You can trade items with other heroes. You could also use items to complete tasks or defeat monsters, and you can move with villagers. And then the monsters are pretty simple. They're just going to be moving around, trying to defeat villagers, raising the terror marker up, and defeating heroes. So let's go over the turn sequence. So the first phase is a hero phase. Very simple. The player can move. It costs 1 action to move to an adjacent space. They can guide 1 villager to or from an adjacent space. So you could be next to a space with a villager and have them move out of that space into another space. Now you might move them away from you, and that's okay, as long as you were adjacent to them to begin with. You could pick up any number of items in your space. So that's very important to remember. So if you notice here, I start with 2 items. I can do 1 action, pick them both up. They go into my inventory. That's my first action. My second action is I can move the boat. So let me explain that real quick on the card here. So advance a task by using an item at the specified location. I'm in the camp, so I can do that. I can also defeat a monster, but I can't do it yet with either Dracula or the creature because I haven't completed the tasks yet. And then I can use my special action. And then any player may play any number of perk cards during the hero phase. That's usually how they work. You can usually only play them during your hero phase or someone else's hero phase. I don't know of any cards you can play during a monster phase, but they may exist in the deck. I just don't know of any. So that's the hero phase. So let's take a look at what I'm doing here. Okay, I picked up the 2 items. I'm at the camp. I'm going to move the boat to the yellow. So I'm going to use the 3 to do that, because I'm going to try to keep the 4. And in order to defeat Dracula, I need a 6+. So maybe I don't want to use the lowest level yellow. But you know what? I'm going to anyway. I'm going to spin the 3 and the 4. So this does not go into the bag. Only when the bag is totally depleted do you place them back in the bag. Oh, by the way, another way the heroes can lose. Not only you lose if the terror marker gets to the skull, but if all 30 monster cards are drawn, the players will lose. So in other words, you only have 30 turns to do it, to defeat the monsters. So I'm going to move the boat again to yellow. So right there, I'm closer to defeating the creature. So that would end my turn. So now I've used 3 actions. There's no villagers out, so I can't help villagers or try to get them to safety. I could move the Loch Ness Monster 3 spaces away from me because he's close. He's at the lagoon, but I'm going to risk it. So now we're going to draw the monster card. So, hey, we're okay. The Invisible Man is not in the game. We're going to place 2 objects. So draw 2 objects out of the bag. More yellow, which is good to try to move the see, look at that. I can move the boat here. And then if I get a blue or another yellow. But anyways, this goes in the mansion and the church. Unfortunately, they're far away. Mansion and the church. All right, so now we look at who's going to be activating here. The creature, okay, we're not playing with the mummy. We are playing with the creature. So the creature will move 1 space, and if there's any villager there or hero, he'll attack with 3 dice. So let's do that. He has to follow the paths here. I think he'll go here. Well, we get to choose as heroes. He'll move the closest to the hero, so I'm 1 away. We'll put him this way to make it so that he can't get to the inspector. But let's say there was a villager here, okay? So he moved on to a villager. You look at the card. The card is he'll roll 3 dice to attack the villager. So he'll roll 3 dice, and he only needs 1 hit to destroy the villager. So the villager has been defeated, and now the terror marker goes up 1. Now, one thing I haven't explained yet, what happens when you get an exclamation? So that even though the monster did 2 hits, you only needed 1 to defeat a villager. So when you roll an exclamation, you look on each creature's card. So in this case, rock the boat. Move the boat 1 space backwards. So anytime when the creature from the Black Lagoon attacks, and if he gets an exclamation, the boat will go back 1. And so if he did get an exclamation, it would go back 1. Now let's say he was able to move 2 spaces and attack me. And he rolled 2 dice. Now remember I said that, I'm sorry, he'll roll 3 dice. Remember I said that I was worried that he might be able to get to me. So let's say it was a 2 and he got to me and he rolled 3 dice. And this is what he rolled. Remember I rolled 2 hits. So what happens is I don't have any objects to discard. I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. But let's say I did have 2 objects, or even 3 objects, it doesn't matter. For each hit, I can discard an object, but I may not want to because I may want to keep these objects. It doesn't matter how many hits I get though. If I decide to say, well, I'm just going to get defeated, I'm not going to lose any objects. As long as I get hit once, I go to the hospital. So I decide not to discard any objects. I go to the hospital. Where is it at? Right down here. I go down here, and the terror track goes up 1. So every time and then I'll just be able to move as normal next turn. Anytime a hero gets defeated, takes a hit without losing an object, they go to the hospital, and the terror track goes up 1. So let's look at Dracula's exclamation mark. That's one thing I haven't gone over. Dark Charm, place a current player in the hero's Dracula space. So why is that a problem? Well, let's say it's my turn. I'm still up here. The inspector moved down here. Dracula moves 2 spaces, attacks. Now again, I got to think of the best situation here. Well, attacks a villager. Okay. And exclamation is rolled right here. The villager is defeated. Villager is defeated. It goes up to the terror track. And then I have to be moved here because it happened on my turn. And let's say Dracula had another attack because he was frenzied. And again, as I showed you on some of the cards, if he's the okay, example, this card. How could he go twice? Well, he attacks the villager, defeating it, and then he's frenzied. He's going to go again, and because an exclamation was rolled, I move to his space, and then he's going to attack me. So that's an example where the exclamation mark can really cause problems for the players. Because if you're playing with the mummy, for instance, you'll get the curse, and every time the exclamation is rolled, you'll move 3 spaces closer to the mummy, slowing it down. So, anything else on the monster phase here? I'll just go over it real quick what's on the card. Notice I placed the items first. We did the event. The one we drew did not have an event for, it was the Invisible Man. Oh, sorry, that's the Loch Ness Monster. I don't know what happened to that card. But let's say I did draw this one. Placed a creature at the lagoon, so the creature would go back. So you got to pay attention if it's, for this game, it's Dracula or a creature from the Black Lagoon. If it's anybody else, you ignore the event. And then the next thing is the monster strikes, which is what I did, and then it would be the next player's turn. So players keep on going in order. Player, monster, next player, monster, then back to, if it's a 2-player game, back to the first player. One other thing you can do that I didn't go over is that players can exchange items whether or not it's in their turn or not. So if it's the explorer's turn, my turn, and I move into the space with Julie, her inspector character, I can trade items with her. It would cost me the action. It would not cost her the action. And one other thing to remember is that you can use your special abilities as many times as you want. So for instance, if this was a situation here, the inspector can go 1, 2 spaces, pick up the this item and then move to the space where Dracula is. Unfortunately, this is a fight item. That's not necessarily a good move. It would, because she can't destroy the coffin yet. But the point is, she can move to a space where there's a monster. Whereas me, I can go anywhere I want. So I'll go over here, pick up these two items. That's my second action. So moving here is one, picking them up is second, and then maybe I want to move again over here. So the explorer gets less actions, but she's able to go just basically anywhere she wants on the board. So that is Horrified. Again, the way you win is you defeat the monsters you're playing with, either 2, 3, or 4 monsters. And the monsters will win if the terror marker reaches the skull, or you go through all of the monster cards. So thank you for watching. If we get 100 likes, we will play with 4 monsters to see if we can defeat the game. Please check out our playthrough and our review. And I'm David, and this is RP Gamepire. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.